Hey guys, how the hell are you? Time for an all-new unbiased gear review on this. The Behringer HM300 distortion pedal. But for some specs on this pedal. So, we have essentially the Boss HM2 kind of shoved into a slightly, well actually not slightly, it's considerably less expensive packaging. We have a plastic enclosure, very, very lightweight. We have 4 knobs as with the original. We've got level, low, mid instead of highs, but I have been informed by a few reliable sources that basically the mids and the highs are just kind of controlled together by the same knob there, as well as distortion. This is powered by either a battery or you have a 9-volt DC adapter right here. Input, output, easy peasy. Set all the knobs to all the way up and just fucking let fly, right? Well, let's see. So this is something that I've been insanely curious about for a long time. You guys know I love, love, love old school Swedish death metal. I love that Swedish chainsaw tone, Swedish buzzsaw tone. I've heard it referred to in both terms in various circles, whatever. In my opinion, anyone attempting to basically bring this tone out there for the masses for a much less expensive, much cheaper option, that's cool to me. And recently, Sweetwater was having a sale. I will link below the link to get it at Sweetwater. Hopefully you guys can still get it at the discounted price. If not, it wasn't exactly all that expensive to begin with. $25 regular price at the time of this video's publication. And, you know, it is what it is. It's just not the most solid looking piece of gear I've ever seen in my life. I'm not gonna lie to you. This lightweight plastic enclosure looks flimsy as hell. Looks like if I stomp on it just hard enough, it's gonna shatter. So it's not exactly something that's instilling a lot of confidence in me as far as lengthy durability. But for that sort of price point, what are you going to expect? And that cheapness also comes into play a little bit in terms of what it sounds like. Not necessarily in terms of the tone, but, well, let me just quit yammering about it. Let's just go into the tone demo. So for the purposes of this tone demo, I feel like I need to go a little bit more into depth for you guys, but I also need to change things up a little bit. First of all, the guitar we are going to be using for this is my Solar S1.6 Pubba. And the reason why I've decided to use this is because this is something that a lot of metal guys are playing these days. So it's something that is common. It's something that a lot of you guys are familiar with. It's something that a lot of you guys are probably already pairing with HM2 Swedish buzzsaw kind of pedals. So I just figured I'd mix things up a little bit, use something that's a little bit more strictly of a metal machine to really sort of dive in and show you what this pedal can really do. That being said, one of the things that I'm doing a little bit differently this go around for the tone demo, I'm running it into a Master Effects Marauder preamp pedal. That pedal is based off of the old PV Bandit, which was oftentimes used in conjunction with a Boss HM2 back in the day to give you those awesome Swedish Chainsaw tones. I'm running it into the Dover DA50. We are using the power amp section of the Dover, so it's running into the effects return. I am using a Fortin Zool Plus in a 4-cable method as detailed by Jason Killertone Frankhauser's video that I am listing below in the description to show you exactly how to hook that sucker up. The reason why I'm using that in a 4-cable method as opposed to just running it straight through into the front of an amp like I have in the past is because these pedals are just inherently noisy by nature, but this one seems to be even noisier than a typical Boss HM2 or some of the clones that are out there. So in order to try to mitigate that just a little bit, there you go. Running the Fortin Zool Plus in a 4-cable method. So first of all, this is the tone without the distortion pedal turned on. Pretty crunchy, but also definitely not clean and also definitely not high gain. The settings on the Master Effects Marauder pedal are all knobs facing straight up at high noon, with the exception of the mid-range and the gain controls set to 9 o'clock. I kind of feel like this is a nice bass tone to test any of these sort of Swedish buzzsaw, chainsaw-esque tones. And with that, let's just turn on the pedal with all the knobs facing all the way to the right, exactly how these things are supposed to be set according to lore. It should be noted at this point, I do have a pretty hard gate going on here. So the way that my rig is set up, the guitar is going into a Fortin Zool Plus, which is then going through and into this pedal, then into the preamp pedal, which is then routing back through the Fortin and then into the Dover's effects return, and I am using the Dover strictly as the power amp here. You can definitely hear that this thing just has a much sort of higher noise floor on it. And now the sacrilegious part, let's start twisting some knobs. For starters, to see if we can maybe get rid of some of that shrillness. I feel like that cleans up ever so slightly, but definitely not something super noticeable. That's actually kind of a neat little interesting tone, having all the distortion turned all the way back. Essentially using this thing as a boost. But even there's definitely still a little bit of that shrillness there. And if we can just agree that you don't need this knob all the way over to the right, you're still getting pretty much all of the fucking distortion in the world, even with the knob facing 9 o'clock, then cool, we're just going to leave it at that and test out the other tone controls. So, as you can hear, that mid control definitely is already responding quite a bit to my touch there. I've dialed it back just a little bit. Some gnarly, super heavy fuzz tones right there. Kind of right around there, I'm feeling is a really nice sweet spot where I'm getting just the right amount of honk, but it's not overbearing. At least as far as this being an HM2 clone goes, it's not overbearing for that. But this is kind of a nice, just gnarly, brutal distortion tone right here. Let's fuss with the low knob. So definitely getting a little something different, but not quite as uber responsive at the very, very end of the knob as the mid control was. Let's dial it back a little bit more here. Oh, wow, it's a wasp nest. Great. Fuck that. Let's get this back up here. Kind of feel like it's awesome as long as I don't stop playing. So overall, my final thought on this pedal, this is honestly kind of a kick-ass unit, especially when you take into account the price. Yes, it's cheap. Yes, it has some noise floor issues that, I don't know, maybe you could kind of get in there with a soldering iron and tweak around a little bit and figure out what's making this thing tick and what's making this thing a little bit. Maybe you can mitigate that. Maybe you can fix it altogether. It is what it is. This is essentially a sub $30 version of the Boss HM2 that if you fuss around with the knobs a little bit, you start to find a few sweet spots on here. You start to find that this thing is kind of nailing that sort of tone at sub $30. So take everything with a grain of salt here when you get one of these. Not exactly the most well-built piece of gear in the world, but goddamn does it sound good, and goddamn does it come in at a great, attractive price point. So yeah, I'd say throw down, man. What's the worst that can happen? You're out $30? Just fucking throw down and get one. But I hear what you're saying. But Arnold, what are you drinking today? I am so glad that you asked. Let's go to the beer fridge. Let's find out. Today, from Martin House Brewing out of Fort Worth, Texas, we are having their newest 2-pack limited release. We are having Campfire, which is basically, it's a newer version, barrel-aged version of a previous release that they had put out a few years back called S'mores, which was a stout. This is whiskey barrel-aged Imperial S'mores Stout. It is 11.6 alcohol by volume. Not really a whole lot of bitterness on here, just 15 IBU. This Imperial Stout was brewed with smoked malt, graham crackers, vanilla, marshmallows, and cocoa powder, aged 4 months in whiskey barrels. So, okay, hopefully it's going to have a little bit of a boozy character to it. I never had the original S'mores, so I can't really compare it to that. I've been on kind of a Martin House kick lately, to be honest with you. I've tried a lot of Martin House stuff recently. Some limited release stuff that I've had kind of sitting in the beer fridge for a while. Some other stuff that I've just kind of stumbled across in my new career that I've got right now. Every so often, I just kind of happen upon something that seems interesting, and this was one of them. So I have yet to be disappointed by Martin House. Martin House has honestly been killing it. So I would hope that this one would also live up to that same sort of expectation. So pours very, very, very pitch black. Little bit of a tannish head there. Rocky head to it, not necessarily smooth, tiny bubbles, just kind of all over the place. Oh my God. Oh, that's a fucking dessert bomb in the aroma. Oh, good God. Jesus. That literally smells like dessert at a really kick-ass, like, high-end restaurant. You know, like when you have, like, your really kick-ass, like, $50, $60 steak, and then they offer you dessert, and you're like, well, shit, how often do I ever have this chance again to eat at such a swanky place? Yeah, sure, let me have that, I guess. And they bring you out this, like, crazy, like, honey glazed chocolate mousse with vanilla cream and whatever else they can manage to throw in there and come up with something ridiculous, but it just tastes like heaven. That's what this smells like. A lot of marshmallow, a lot of cream. The cocoa powder is very, very present in there. I was expecting something a little bit toastier and a little bit boozier on the nose, and I'm actually a little bit relieved that it's not there. Oh my God. That's incredible. That is just incredible. That is... Oh, that's so good. That is so good. Basically, all the flavors that I'm getting out of this are the same stuff that I was getting in the aroma, but now you finally get a little bit of that boozier character. And it's not really doing a whole lot to it. It's just kind of pinching back in the cheeks a little bit, adding to a little bit fuller mouthfeel. Oh, man. For serious, this is... Wow, this is just an absolutely incredible, incredible dessert stout. That might be one of the best dessert stouts I've ever had. No bullshit. A little bit longer swish there. A lot more boozy characteristics coming out. I am getting a lot of graham cracker, but I'm not really getting like that sort of like honey graham cracker like note that's just total graham cracker. If anything, it tastes like kind of a powdery version, which not necessarily bad, but that could be a little bit better. That being said, though, that I'm not saying that to necessarily take away from this experience, because this is a fantastic brew. Like, this is going to get rated pretty highly when I go on Untappd later, but yeah, it's just so good. It's just so good. And the finish, too, doesn't exactly, like, there's a little bit of mouthfeel that's lingering around, but for the most part, it just goes down super smooth, too. That is really, really awesome. So, that is Campfire from Martin House Brewing out of Fort Worth, Texas. So thank you guys so very much for tuning in. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to this channel. There's tons more metal and guitar-oriented content to come. And as always, please remember, take what you do seriously. Do not take yourselves too seriously.